It's the Exit 52 podcast, presented as always by Jimmy's Famous Seafood, and also presented, especially tonight, by our friends at the Black Eyed Susan Spices Company. Our Maryland boys are back, Baltimore boys local to the area, as they're now wing experts. After appearing on season 24 of Hot Ones, they recommend mixing 3 parts Death by Chocolate hot sauce with 1 part butter for the best Caribbean jerk adjacent wings you've ever had in your life. There's a hot and mild version, so you can dial in the heat like a Lamar to Manger's corner route. If buffalo chicken dip is more your speed, try the medium heat and the smoked garlic and orange goodness of Captain Clyde's Cannonball Crush to level up your chicken dip and make it less buffalo and more Baltimore. Maybe a little foreshadowing there, hopefully, I guess. Go to blackeyedspices.com and enter code EXIT52 at checkout for 10% off your order, or go to your Baltimore and DC area Ace Hardware locations, or the Seasoned Olive in Fells Point, or the Wine Source in Hamden to get yours. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined by Spenny Playoffs. He had a nice little smile and wave there, but I'm detecting there's something simmering beneath the surface here. I don't know if he's a little antsy about this matchup. There's been some, throwing some barbs back and forth in the group chat with Cole there. I can't really get a read on the energy here. I don't know what to think of this, what to make of it. I'm kind of just cowering in the corner and waiting to see what we get.
I'm scintillated. I'm tickled. I'm excited. This is the most exciting time of the year when the Baltimore Ravens make the playoffs. Jake, we've been fortunate enough now. You and I are on year 6 of this podcast. We started together in 2019. We've had 2 iterations of it, kind of 3 in a way. But we've been fortunate, right? It's good for content. It's fun. It's fun to talk about when the Ravens make the playoffs until they have lost in the past. I like this team. I like this matchup. What did I say, Jake? What did we talk about? Seeding, playoffs. Who do you want? I wanted Pittsburgh. That's why I said every time. That sentiment didn't change for weeks and weeks and weeks as the playoff picture grew more clear. So it's time. I'm ready. I want to watch it. I want to be there. I want to do it. I want to experience it. And I want to see the next chapter. I have said it several times. We're going live. This week. We'll go again live tomorrow. We'll announce the ticket winner giveaway. You still have plenty of time to enter. But I am thrilled to watch this. I am excited because for many reasons, but one being it's the next chapter of the Ravens and Steelers rivalry, which I grew up on. Ravens fans grew up on our demographic. We know we run the reports, run the numbers. It's us, our own demographic. It's 25 to 34-year-old males, most of them, of course, Ravens fans, and a good chunk of them in the state of Maryland, where you and I reside, Jake. And if you're a Ravens fan and if you're listening to this podcast and if you've been listening for a while, you grew up on the Ravens and the Steelers. You grew up on Joey Porter, Troy Polamalu, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Todd Heap, Heath Miller, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco. You grew up on all that. Derek Mason, Willis McGahee, freaking the Rashard Mendenhall, all the Ryan Clark, all those different players, those catalysts throughout those matchups, Torrey Smith. So now it's something new. The Steelers travel to Baltimore for the first time in the postseason, and it's exciting to me. So I'm tickled, quite purple by it. And I was going to say tickled pink, but hey, we'll go purple. And I've been looking at it and thinking about it. And Jake, you asked me right before we hopped on, hey, do you have any film for this one? Usually in the preview, we mostly do film. I don't think we did it for the Texans on Christmas, a couple games Thursdays, stuff like that. We might not do film, but you said it. You were like, we've already done film breakdowns and previews of these teams twice. These teams think about each other nonstop. The GMs think about each other. The owners think about each other. I mean, the equipment manager thinks about each other. Like, they think
really cool clip. I didn't see the episode, but very cool clip of Harbaugh and Tomlin talking about the matchup on Hard Knocks. Just talking about the familiarity between the two. I think either Mike or John said something about it's like playing against your brother. Probably John, because he obviously has experience with that. And yeah, Tomlin talking about the similarities in the franchise. Whoa, that's throwing me.
It is new. Our graphics here are new.
Did we customize this, or is this?
No, I didn't touch it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I like it. Listen, but yeah, no, the familiarity between it. And that was just a really cool clip, but you can continue on with your point. Sorry to cut you off there.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah. All that Hard Knocks. I mean, Hard Knocks has been wowing these teams. How crazy is it? So even Hard Knocks itself, these two teams have been it's ships passing each other in the night, right? The Ravens struggled twice this season. They lost consecutive games, one of those being the Steelers and then the Eagles there headed into the bye. And the Ravens started the year 0-2. The Steelers started white hot and had a lead and consistently had a lead. And it's that same thing that goes on where the Steelers are hot. They look good. Oh, Tomlin, they can do this. They can do that. And then they get cold in December and into January. And the Ravens usually pick up steam headed into the postseason. And I know that there are narratives. I know that Stephen A. Smith and Dan Orlovsky and all these people talk about all these things about the Ravens and the Ravens in the playoffs and Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. But Lamar Jackson has played 2 playoff games since January of 2021 when the Ravens lost to the Bills in Buffalo in that frigid, windy game. It's just crazy to me that those same people that make those conversations about who the Ravens are, who Lamar Jackson is, as a player, as an identity, as success, and a archetype, talk about the way he's improved as a passer, which he undoubtedly has, right? At this point, it's full-fledged control at the line of scrimmage. That was the last infinity stone, right? Being able to run the game as a field general, which he has so well. And then also be like, well, he's 2-4 in the playoffs. If you include January 2019 throwing to Michael Crabtree and John Brown, who were good players. How long ago was that? Who talks about Michael Crabtree? So why are we talking about a sorry receiver? I know what you're going to say. A sorry ass receiver like Crabtree. I know that's where you were about to go, Jake. But
I like Crabtree. I liked him a lot.
I think he got a lot of shit here. I don't know why. He was all right. He had a couple down moments, drops or whatever. But
continue. Yeah, no,
but so it's like we bring that in, and then we talk about the Titans game the year after when it was this new shiny thing, right? And the option and the MVP and all that shit. So it just doesn't add up to me. And last year they played in the AFC Championship game. It's not. I mean, they get a bye. That we're like, oh, they're 2-4. Well, they've had a bye twice. They skipped the wild card round. I mean, we talk about the Bills and how good Josh Allen's numbers have been in the playoffs. They've never had a fucking bye. They play wild card teams. The Steelers are a wild card team. They're a 10-win team. They're a 9. This is the new 9-7, 10-6, whatever. They're 9.5 and 7.5. So what are we talking? I just don't, the Vegas doesn't reflect that. They're 10-point favorites. The Ravens were 9.5-point favorites against the Texans last year and beat the fucking brakes off them. Did they start that game slowly? Yeah. But, just as the playoffs, the content, of course, it's the last hurrah of content for the NFL until the draft. And, you get through the Super Bowl. This next month is the final push. That's why we're recording every night. So I get it. And you get talked out. But as these things all, the tires spin in the mud of these conversations that people all have, and maybe it's a little of a straw man in a sense, but I know that they do exist. Everyone sees them. You hear them every day. They're all over the internet. I just don't get it. This is not same old Ravens. This is not the same team. It's not the same quarterback. They have a fucking superstar running back. Lamar Jackson has led the Ravens in rushing every year since he was drafted. Derrick Henry had 1,900 yards this year and set the franchise record for touchdowns. I mean, it's not the same shit. So I just don't get that. Meanwhile, I do think the Steelers are the same shit. It's Russell Wilson, a more experienced veteran quarterback, has won a Super Bowl and those kinds of things, but the offense is still this conservative, play on the outside, run the ball into, 4 yards in a pile of dust, and then chuck the ball. They've been doing that since 2017, 18. That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed at all. So I feel like it's a familiar opponent, a familiar team in the Steelers, but the way people talk about the Ravens, these trepidations and things, I just don't really understand. And I mean, I think a lot of fans that like the Ravens feel that way, right? Because we actually pay attention. We actually watch every game. Does that make us have our own biases? Do we watch more of the Ravens than anyone else? I definitely do. I don't watch the fucking Seahawks or the Bengals or the Packers every week. I don't go through that with a fine-tooth comb. So we have our own idiosyncrasies about that, but I just think it's lazy. I don't know. It's tough. These conglomerates try to cover all 32 teams. That's why, people always say, go into local coverage, of which we certainly are. So like and subscribe if you're here, but I don't know, man. The Zay Flowers injury we'll talk about all that stuff. We're going to go live again tomorrow. I'll talk a little more. I'll probably bring some film tomorrow, but
I think
Thursday we do the preview, and that's how I feel headed into this game.
A certain Canadian might be it might be all together, and it might be sitting in the spot you're in right now with a certain Canadian fresh off of a puddle jumper, landing at Dulles. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, like I totally understand and agree with all that you're saying. I think that, it's reflective of a lot of what's going on in this media ecosystem in the last 15 years with the advent of social media, 24-hour news networks. It's bled into sports. That's what ESPN has done. FS1 has done. They've made a killing off of the shouty shows, as the PFF guys would say. Having said all that, it's kind of just then you know what? Go out there and whip that ass, Lamar and the Ravens. Go out there and win by 10 points. Go out there and win by 2 scores. Just go and do it. And I'm just tired of having the conversation. I'm tired of defending it because all these talking heads are going to do is they're going to default to that 2 and 4 number because that's all they see. They're not Stephen A. Smith isn't sitting down and breaking down.
They get given notes, right? And Rich Eisen, I watched a 10-minute Rich Eisen video to add to your point quickly and pass it back to you, but they get given 6 pages of notes, and on the notes it says, here's the playoff record, here's the playoff stats. So they read that. That's what they talk about. That's right. It's like being on a teleprompter almost.
Right, exactly. And that makes it very easy for them to craft up a narrative, and the producers that are in the room, to craft up a narrative at 4 a.m. and then they go out there at 8 a.m. and they shout about it. Very easy to come up with a sound bite that gets shared on Twitter or X, I should say, the Everything app by everyone. Everyone on the Everything app sharing everything about Lamar Jackson's playoff failures. Just very easy to kind of perpetrate a narrative, and it just starts running downhill like a snowball, like a runaway train, and you can't control it anymore until you pull that brake lever, which is either winning a Super Bowl or playing really damn well and getting really close. And you're right, Lamar got close last year, but he did not play well in that Chiefs game, and it leaves a sour taste in the shouty show's mouth, and they go out there and they shout about it.
He did. I mean, he kind of did, though, right? And that's the context, right? He kind of did. He was driving the ball. They were going down the field. He was making big throws to Flowers, and they fucking fumbled.
Yeah, and that's
it wasn't that Titans game. It all goes back to the Titans game and then the Bills game. And the Bills game, he threw a horrible pick in a close game. The Bills had one. I get that. Yes, that was bad, but it's there wasn't some panicked thing going on in this game until shit went wrong outside of him. And then they're down 2 scores against the Chiefs, and they hit the oh shit button because the Chiefs are the best at closing games out, and you're down by 10. So it's tough.
And the only way to stop that runaway train is to not hit the oh shit button, is to pull the lever, slow yourself down, and figure it out. And it's going to make it all the more worth it if you do it, and then you get to tune into your shouty shows, and you get to I did this. I was a big First Take guy back in the day. Let me tell you, there was something
who wasn't when it was in its prime, right? It was great.
In its prime, Tebow, all that stuff, and Skip, Skip in the news right now for some not great stuff, but he was the biggest Flacco hater out there. And I would tune in every fucking day and hate watch him, talk shit about Flacco, and Stephen A would defend him, and they just go round and round. Terrell Suggs would go on sometimes, and kind of just, fun banter overall, but it would genuinely irk me. And then Flacco goes out there and he just shuts him up. And I tune into the shouty show. I tune into First Take the next day. I'm listening to all that stuff. So it just makes it all the more sweet. So really, all that to say, they're in the playoffs now. They've done what they can do. 12-5 season, one of the best offenses in NFL history, one of the best quarterback seasons of all time by Lamar. Now it's all right out in front of you, and you can go grab it, and you can go shut those people up, and nothing would give me more joy. And of course, if it doesn't go that way, we'll be here to provide context. But, the shouty shows will continue to do their thing, and the world will continue to turn in the way that it has. But overall, as of where I am, I'm kind of just looking forward to see how it all shakes out, which, is kind of a lazy way of saying not really engaging with the trying to defend the wall, this and that. Like I've been saying the last couple of weeks, I kind of just want to let this one play out, and we'll just sort of see what happens. I don't necessarily need to get caught up in the vortex of negativity. I don't know. It's just, it kind of wears on me at a certain point.
No, I understand. So there's just all those things swirling around in the world, and just a couple notes. I guess we can kind of get into what we typically do here. It's playoffs, so we're a little excited, but here you can see live odds. Huge shout out to B Fowler for the comment there. Appreciate the tips. We will be sending someone to a playoff game. Talk about that in a moment. Live odds, according to DraftKings, Ravens -9.5, over 43.5. So they think that the Ravens win, what is that, a 26-16 game, somewhere around there. something like that. Somewhere in that department. Ravens minus 470 money line. Teams in the last decade that are 10-point, I think it's double-digit favorites, of which this relatively applies, are 15-1 straight up, and I think they have covered astronomical amount as well. So there's that factor, and I don't know. We talked about the referee the other night. It's a ref crew that calls penalties on road teams more than anyone. I thought that was interesting. I can pull that one back up. Here's another interesting note I saw today. Gianna Hahn of the Baltimore Banner, who had an interesting little situation where they're interviewing folks about Lamar Jackson's fragrance line in the locker room, and then you can kind of hear someone talking about George Pickens saying something. You can't quite make it all the way out, but I love the
zaprudering about that too. Like, oh, they didn't actually say. It's like whatever. Again,
the editor of the Banner came out and was like, "That's not what was said," because the Ravens are probably like, "Why the fuck did you post that video?" The chat,
yeah. Guess what?
The ironclad fist came down and was like,
the train got off the tracks. Once the train gets going, you can't stop it with the modern media, ecosystem. That's not how it works.
Yeah, so Gianna Hahn here says Ravens had a silly little practice today where they were missing only Zay Flowers. Some fun shenanigans going on by both coaches and players as they waited for special teams to finish up so they could take the field. She continued on, correlation doesn't always equal causation. Most fun locker room weeks, though, last year led to wins. And I thought that was interesting, and I thought the Hard Knocks was interesting against the Steelers. And I'm going to keep talking about this because it all strains in one. You've heard us talk about the Steelers twice already, right? And really, we've been talking about it all week. So this is like the 6th, 7th conversation we've had that's extended about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. We talked about in the first matchup, we don't trust the Ravens to beat the Steelers. We talked about that in the preseason even, Jake, you and I, right? We said, fool us once, fool us twice, fool us, 7 of 8 times.
We don't get fooled.
Don't get fooled again. So we talked about that. And then we said, Ben Roethlisberger, after the Ravens lose in their voodoo magic in Heinz Field, Paycor, whatever it's called now. Anyway, Ben Roethlisberger's podcast, he goes and talks about how Renegade started back in the 2000s and all this stuff. And he's like, the only team I've ever seen try to lean into that is the Ravens. And we had a conversation about how the Ravens try to jump up and down with the towels. Renegade starts. They play it at practice. And it's the same thing that they try to do. They try to manufacture this confidence. They manufacture the way they're going to be, the way that they're going to act, which in essence, it psychologically is a valid argument, a valid way of thinking that is an interesting thesis, right? We're going to get excited by the thing that causes us anxiety or can lead to mistakes. So we're going to try to exposure therapy ourselves and embrace it. And then they lost in Pittsburgh again. Then the Steelers come to Baltimore, John Harbaugh and Hard Knocks, walking around, Lamar Jackson, Eric DeCosta, another player. Hey, almost high fives and smiles. If they make a play, we'll make the next one. Relaxed. And they've talked about being relaxed. And they're being themselves, it sounds like, in the locker room. They are not trying to be someone else. They are not trying to embrace someone else's identity, someone else's culture. So are these things X's and O's? Are these things schematic? No, but that's what's troubled the Stephen A. Smith narrative that they talk about. The troubles in the playoffs, Lamar in the playoffs. And Lamar had comments this week himself saying that, he sees things too quickly. The game is slow, right? We just say, take what's there. It's single game elimination, right? It's different. It's not the same. That's why everyone says, the champion, the real players come out in January or when the weather's cold, whatever. All of those different lines about, how the champion's crowned. That's what made Brady so good. It's what made Mahomes so good, letting the other team fuck up and taking advantage when they do, and then stepping on their throat when they do, when they have that anxiety. So the Steelers have been a playoff game, because they want to win it more than they want to win any other game in the regular season, right? Even if they're 5-11, even if they're 10-2, they want to beat the Steelers. If the Steelers are in the playoffs, vice versa. That's just how it works. So those same issues that we have seen and encountered against the Steelers are the same things that make maybe Lamar throw a ball to Isaiah Likely in triple coverage against the Chiefs, which I'll knock on wood for him. Have we seen him do that this year? Has he been yucking up jump balls? I mean, he did it against the Jags last year to Isaiah Likely too, right? In 2023, he brought the ball down. So maybe that gives you confidence, but what's that stat that the Josh Allen MVP lovers love to use against Lamar, throws to open windows, right? He has been surgical throwing to open receivers, right? Maybe part of that definitely does have to do with Derrick Henry, right? The dominant run game does open up the pass game. All of those things that Bills fit, whatever. But he has been surgical. He does not miss the open man. He has been extending plays and finding the open receiver. He has not been forcing it. In that first game against the Steelers, he forced a couple of throws to Deontay Johnson, things like that. So I think this all ties together. I feel good about where they are. I feel good that they have achieved awareness of what the issues were, and they have self-corrected. And that's cultural. And culture, whether you like it or not, matters in the postseason. Winning culture. The Ravens and Steelers have winning cultures. The Patriots over time, winning culture. The Chiefs have a winning culture. You know, the Bills have won the AFC East how many times in a row now? Was it 6, 5 ever since Brady was, out? So winning culture matters. These are the teams that find themselves in December. The Bengals don't have one. That's why they missed the playoffs. They had to hope and watch and wait and all those things. So, I'm going to get into some stats here, some cool things, talk about, the previous matchups a little, but I'm just really happy with where the Ravens are from a global kind of perspective.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And yeah, I mean, again, like not even like getting too deep into the schematics of it all quite yet. I think you're right. In that most recent matchup, he looked as calm as he ever had. And I think it probably was reflected in that changed approach of not trying to be anything that you're not, right? I mean, it's just a basic life lesson. You try to pose a little bit. You try to, act like you're something a little bit different than you are, then you're setting yourself up to fail because you're putting yourself, inherently outside of your comfort zone. And this idea that we're going to wave the towels around and we're going to try to simulate renegade. It's like, you don't really need to do that. Like renegade is immaterial to what is happening on the field. And when you allow that mythology to kind of seep into what's going, on the field, that's when you get yourself into trouble. And it wasn't an issue.
Football, right? It's not ultimately football.
That's your thing. Yeah. You're a big, it's not football guy. And that's your thing with a lot of these shouty shows. It's not football. Like it's just all kind of BS narratives. And that's, again, like that's a lot of fun.
It's fun. It's entertaining. Yeah. It's fine, but it's not football.
Yeah.
Jumping up and down on the bench to renegade, preparing to do that is not football.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's high school. Honestly, I will say that's high school. That's like high school shit.
Yeah. And you're a trained professional. You're paid lots of money to go out there and, just execute to the best of your ability and not have that stuff get in your head. And I think that's part of our frustration with Harbaugh in some of these spots too, where he does feel a little overly emotional. He's kind of wearing his heart on his sleeve, and that's a thing that you love about him at times. Then other times you feel like he gets over his skis a little bit. And that
the words of Ray Lewis, the same thing to make you laugh will make you cry.
Exactly. Yeah. And Big Smoke from GTA San Andreas. The book says same things that make us laugh, make us cry. What fucking book? But yeah, it's, it just feels like just kind of from the not football 30,000 foot view vibes of it all. It just feels like they need to just settle down and go play their game. And it's kind of ties back to what I've been saying throughout the week here. I think a lot of people's anxiety about this game, mine included, are the fact that, we've seen this happen before where the Ravens trip themselves up in a spot where they shouldn't. And the problem with it all, where that anxiety is coming from is that it just absolutely should not take place. You're a double-digit favorite here, and you've done everything you need to do. You've got the best rushing attack in NFL history. You've got a top 4 quarterback in the league this year, maybe the best quarterback in the league right now. You've got a defense that has turned itself around dramatically. All of it lines up, and it doesn't make sense if they go out there and lose this thing. And that is what can really be psyche shattering when you go out there and you just allow a loss that doesn't make sense to occur. So I think a lot of people are probably afraid of that. I would count myself to an extent among those ranks, but overall, just go out there and get it done and squash this narrative and shut these shouty show guys up.
And they've overcome those weird things in 2 of the last 4. I mean, again, I don't even think 2021 matters, but the Titans in Tennessee, that was what it was. They're down 10-0, and it was turning the ball over, doing weird shit, and they got out of it. The Texans returned a punt, and then the Ravens just were themselves unleashed for, 3 touchdowns in the second half, end up blowing the Texans out there. In terms of this game, this matchup, and what we've seen this year. So next-gen stats, I have some stats I want to pull up here. Minkah Fitzpatrick, pardon me, I had the wrong one. Minkah Fitzpatrick aligned 12.6 yards away from the line of scrimmage on average this season, the 4th deepest of any player. So he's on the roof. That's where the Steelers want him. They want him on the roof. He's their center fielder. They, as we've talked about a million times, they play more middle of the field closed, aka 3 high coverages, more or less, man 1 and cover 3 and variations of that than anyone in football. So Minkah's usually on the roof. That was the 4th deepest alignment of any defender. However, with safety Deshaun Elliott, former Raven, out in week 15 and 16, Minkah Fitzpatrick moved into the box more. DeMonte KZ filled in at free safety. And during those weeks, Fitzpatrick aligned just 6.9 yards away from the line of scrimmage on average. So Deshaun Elliott, to me, and then I went and looked at PFF as well. Just, all right, I'm curious about all this shit. PFF has him at like a 70 run defense, a lot of green. If you're familiar with PFF, green is good, blue is great. A lot of green in run defense for Deshaun Elliott. Who, does that surprise Ravens fans? What was Deshaun Elliott known for? Knocking the snot out of Derrick Henry one time. Not saying that's going to happen. Derrick Henry did kind of trip. That hit was still awesome. But I think that's something that's a little different. Something else I saw, there's a lot of interesting stuff that I was able to pull. Charlie Kolar, when on the field, the Ravens have when the Ravens run the ball 77.1% of the time with Charlie Kolar on the field. That is the highest rate in the NFL among all players with 150 snaps. So if you see Chucklehead out there, he's got quite the Twitter presence. I'm sure you're eating it up, Jake. That's right up your alley.
Yeah, love the big helmet thing. That's something I think we were all noticing way before he did.
He's got the Master Chief Halo helmet, kind of, which looks sick on some. On him, he's always making fun of himself. So it looks, I don't know. I still think it looks cool, actually. I was going to say it looks goofy, but I don't think it does. I like that helmet. I think it looks cool. Patrick Ricard. Right. To no one's surprise, Pat Ricard, 4th highest, 71%. So if you see those two, like Zay Flowers out this game, John Harbaugh announces. We'll talk about that a little more with probably the next stat that I'm going to pull here. But Ricard, 4th highest, 71.7%. So if you see those white boys on the field, Ravens want to run the damn football. And that's not a surprise to the Steelers. I don't think they want it to be a surprise. Flowers had a 25.4% target share, which is the 11th highest in the NFL this season. 43.4% of his receiving yards came after the catch, right? So Zay gets the ball a lot of screens to Zay, and he ultimately does most of his damage after the catch. I don't think anyone's surprised here about that. Joey Porter Jr. shadowed opposing receiver for 2/3 or more of their routes in 9 games this season. That is tied for the 2nd most by any defensive back, with a minimum of 10 receiver routes that they shadowed. In those 9 games, Porter faced 24 targets, allowed 14 receptions for 221 yards, and broke up 3 passes. He also forced a tight window, less than 1 yard of separation, on 12 out of 24. Rashad Bateman comes into play here, where Rashad Bateman, who Porter Jr. shadowed in that Week 11 matchup, aligned out wide 90% of the time. So Joey Porter Jr. probably going to shadow, I would imagine, Rashad Bateman in this game. And Bateman did not fare very well. It was a ton of press coverage from Joey Porter Jr. I had a stat on it, which is escaping me. But here we go. Rashad Bateman caught 2 of his 5 targets in Week 11 for 30 yards. His 2nd fewest receiving yards over expected this season, -21. So they thought he should have had an extra 21 yards there on average. Joey Porter Jr. lined up against Bateman on 22 out of 30 routes, which was 73%. Aligning in press coverage on 13 out of those 30, Bateman failed to catch his only target with Porter as the nearest defender, which also occurred in press coverage. So to me, that says Minkah's going back on the roof, right? And they're probably going to shadow Rashad Bateman. And they're probably going to shade. That's the Belichick thing, right? Double. I mean, in this case, it's doubling the 1. The Belichick would always say double the 1. So this is going to be shadowing the 1 with Joey Porter. I think they might like that. And I was right about to say it. We got a comment here. Turner W, get Rashad in motion. How do you defeat press coverage? How do you defeat shadowing? You create traffic. You create picks. You keep Bateman off the ball. Who is usually off the ball for the Ravens and who usually is in motion? Zay Flowers. I talked about 2 nights ago. Rashad Bateman's opportunity, his role, what he might do in this game, throwing him some screens, getting him in space, working trips, things like that. All of those things are fine and dandy. However, the final thing, there's a couple more fun ones I have about Russell Wilson, some things like that I might bring up later here. The Ravens led the NFL in both explosive plays, running the ball and throwing the ball, and therefore, of course, in explosive plays overall. And I had one more. Derrick Henry recorded 7 explosive runs of 10-plus yards in Week 16 against the Steelers. That was the most by any player in the NFL in any game this season. 7 runs of 10 yards. Toe up from the flow up. Tore them apart. Henry rushed between the tackles 62.5% of his carries this season, second highest inside. Overall, Henry totaled 162 rushing yards on 24 carries, forced 8 missed tackles against the Steelers, tore them up. A couple other quick ones here, I guess. I keep saying that, but basically, TJ Watt, running the ball at TJ Watt, teams average 3.3 yards per carry. Running away from him, they average 5 against the Steelers. Cam Hayward, when on the field, teams average 3.3 yards per carry. When he's off the field, they average 5 yards per carry.
Dealing with the flu this week, too, apparently.
And is, apparently sick. I mean, big fella can probably get it together, but not great for Cam Hayward. And hey, ton of respect to him. He's not one of those piece of shit Steelers from the 2000s. He's always been a classy guy to me. But what do those things tell us the Ravens need to do? We had the one answer, Turner W, get Bateman in motion and get Isaiah Likely in motion, get guys in motion. If they want to shadow, what does that mean they're playing? Man or man match. That means you know what they're running. You don't have Zay, who's, a jitterbug. Porter kind of locked Zay up. He's played well against the Ravens, I'll say. He kind of had Zay in prison a couple times, especially in that first matchup, and I think a little bit last year too. But
picked off Lamar in the end zone, one-on-one with Beckham last year.
Yeah, he's played well against the Ravens, and certainly no shock as his father, Joey Porter Sr., now had his moments against the Ravens too. But I think at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to the simple, 3 things. Don't fumble the football. And I'll include don't throw that pick in the red zone that Lamar threw. The pressure in his face. That's why he threw that. It wasn't a read. Lamar came up. We saw it in Hard Knocks. Comes off the sideline. He's like, damn it. Everybody was open. Oh, my God. He was like, he got right in my face. I couldn't see. And so he threw a blind pass. No, that's panic. That's bad. Fumbling the football. I don't know, man. I don't even know what to say. The Steelers are so good at punching the ball out. I don't even ball security. I think they've punched the ball out when you have good ball. I've seen literally 2 hands on the ball trying consciously to do it, and they still can get the ball out. So again, it's running to the football. And at the end of the day, you brought Derrick Henry here to do one thing, and it was run in fucking January. It was to calm things down, which we've talked about. It was a run in January. This offensive line, the Ravens' run game, and the Ravens' ability to not get false starts, to not hold, to line up correctly with one of their starting wide receivers out, and to have that accountability on yourself as a player. And I don't give a shit about the coaches in this regard. Line up correctly. Check. And if you don't give them enough time to get to the line of scrimmage, you need to be running to the ball, explosive out of the huddle, on the ball, like Peyton Manning always likes to talk about. Get to the damn line of scrimmage so that you can check. And Mark Andrews, who is the smartest, he's the one that's always he's been in this offense forever and with this team forever. He knows the rules, knows everything, knows everyone's role, so that he can air traffic control you. Hey, I'm on, you're off. Hey, you need to get off. Hey, who needs to be on? All those things. So urgency out of the huddle, urgency from the play caller to be definitive. When in doubt, run the fucking football with Derrick Henry. That's why you brought him here. I don't think Gus Edwards was going to beat the Chiefs last year, but Gus Edwards, love him to death. Love the Gus bus, not Derrick Henry, man. He is a difference maker. His rushing yards over expectation, the tackles he breaks, how explosive he is, his IQ, his ball security, all of those things. Well, he did fumble against the Steelers, but all of those things. If you do that, you will win. If you take care of the football, run the ball when in doubt, and get your fucking play calls in, line up correctly, and don't shoot yourself in the foot, you will win this football game. I think they know that. I think the entire organization knows that. They know what their issues are. They have done a good job solving them, save for last fucking Saturday against the Cleveland Browns, where they were kind of doing their goof pickle, dipsy doodle, twirly, pogo stick bullshit a little bit. So Todd Monken's talked about it. Lamar's talked about it. They've all talked about it. They're all aware. When you understand a problem, you can find a solution and move forward. So I feel great about it. I love it. I'm ready.
Yeah, and I kind of, you mentioned some of the goof pickling around versus the Browns. Sometimes it can be good to have a little bit of a wake-up call. It's funny because they win that game, 35-10, but definitely was a little bit closer in that first half. You have a couple failed fourth downs. You just kind of felt like they were, in a little bit of a jam session in that one. They were just kind of, picking at the guitar a little bit, just kind of screwing around, playing with their food, seeing what worked. Some stuff didn't. You get punched in the mouth maybe a little bit, and hopefully that can serve as a bit of a wake-up call. Because the Steelers, to your point, they don't have the most talented quarterback in the league right now. They're, have plenty of issues, lost 4 games in a row. But one thing they are is really well coached, and one thing they have is a lot of pride, and they are going to run at the football like a bat out of hell. I'm seeing in the comments here they're going to try like madmen to strip it out, because I think just as much as the Ravens know that they have the talent, they have the quarterback, they have everything on their side that says they should win this game, the Steelers know if we punch the ball out a couple of times, we're probably going to fall on it at least once. The math really didn't work out in that last matchup where the Ravens fell on those 3 that they dropped. The Steelers know that they do one of those, they turn the tide a little bit, and that most recent game was probably a little bit closer than the final scoreboard showed as well. They can keep this thing competitive right up until the end, and that's what they want to do because they believe that the Ravens are going to burn the house down. And we get in that situation, if you're the Ravens, to the point that you've eloquently made here, why did you sign Derrick Henry? To calm things down, to take your hand off of the gasoline canister and the lighter, and to walk out into the, sunny winter day and just go for a walk and not burn the house down, to let the intrusive thoughts not win and just settle things down and just do what you need to do, because Henry has done this in the playoffs before. He is on the best offense that he has ever played on. These big comments are throwing me the hell off, and I like them. I remember Spenny saying the Ravens could run the ball 50 times and they'll probably win. You know what? You might be right about that, because you're talking about these numbers, and 3.3 going to Watt, 5, and change going to Hayward. That's more than enough. If you're getting 3.5 per carry, you're getting a first down.
Again, that's the average of all teams, right? The Ravens are, them and the Eagles, those are the 2 powerhouse rushing teams. So they can do it a little different. Lo and behold, what 2 teams, Ravens did play them twice, but both of them dealt the Steelers L's and ran all over them. So, there's a couple other guys. Larry Ogunjobi playing in this game. Watt was banged up. The Steelers have not been generating pressure effectively. And there's some worry about the blitz and stuff like that. They blitzed Lamar 61% of his dropbacks in their last matchup. Lamar, I think, went 11 of 15 with it was like 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, they already threw the sink at him. So that's not a surprise, right? It's not some worry anymore. And again, it's like the things that people were rattled about a long time ago. And we haven't seen Lamar enough in the playoffs. He didn't play 3 games last year. He didn't play some high fly. It was the rookie CJ Stroud. No one gave a shit about the Texans by that time. It was a nice story in the regular season. People were dialed in on other games. The Ravens-Texans game was not exciting, of a matchup. And it was boring in the first half. If you're watching if you're a red zone type person, fantasy football, you want to see fucking 35, 34, fantasy players all scoring 50 points. That's not what that game was in the first half. So people probably lost attention span. And then they played the Chiefs. Chiefs outclassed them. Frankly, the Ravens shot themselves in the foot. So it is what it is. And I said that after the Chiefs game, they didn't need to, they could have run the ball 50 times, and I think you might win that game. And then fucking Lamar said it. I've been saying the F-bombs on here like crazy. I'm going to have to do a Chris Long.
You're fired up. You are on tilt right now. I think you need this game to kick off right now.
I'm certainly ready. I walk over there right now and go watch this game. But then Lamar came out and said it. Lamar said, fuck throwing the ball to the Washington Post before this season, and then ran for 150 yards on the Chiefs. He said, I feel like we don't need to throw the ball. He lost weight to be faster. It felt like he gained weight so that he could throw more and hold up in the pocket. And then was like, why did I do that? Fuck that. I'm the best runner. We have Derrick Henry, 3,000 yards rushing, 4,000 yards passing, the only team to ever do that. So,
don't try to be something you're not.
In the words of Ryan Reynolds' mother, whatever his character is in the movie Just Friends, just be yourself, be yourself. Great movie, great Christmas movie. But what, you don't know Just Friends?
I feel like I've heard of it. I don't think I have seen it though.
Oh, Anna Faris, you have to watch it. I've watched it I saw it in theater actually in 7th grade or something, but it's a good one. Isaiah 4-0. Spencer, do you feel any more confident with no Zay than you did last weekend? Again, I'm fine for one game. That's like this is the thing. You lost Bateman mid-game against the Eagles, and you didn't know what to do. And then suddenly the Eagles had a lead, and you didn't know what to do.
Well, you had something you could break glass in case of emergency, but then they broke the glass. They had to stick their hands in there. They cut their hand and had to go to the emergency room. Shout out to Deontay Johnson.
Right. Yeah, that too. So they were like, oh, we'll throw Johnson in there. We have some plays for him we've been crafting up. And he was like, no, thank you. And then you're like, oh, so now Tylan Wallace is in, and I don't have – Todd Monken has no – the beauty of creating those sheets, those big laminate sheets that Cole loves, that Monken's stuffing in his pants. And I was watching Nick Sirianni talk about it and all these things. Like, part of that play sheet is –
By the way, we have breaking news from our guy, Dr. Chow, Pro Football Doc. Zay is doubtful to play in the divisional round, even if they make it. So,
I am Pro Football Doc. That was me. That's my account. Mr. Spencer
I'm going to find that tweet and send it to Taylor, like right now.
Mr. Spencer Chow. That's me. So that's what I said, to be honest. I was like, he's probably not good in 2 weeks. Maybe not. We'll see. If it is an LCL sprain, he's not playing. If it's a bone contusion, he's probably playing. So I don't know. The word is knee sprain. Who knows? Whatever. And No Way DJ says, I hope we don't have to have Lamar running the ball 10 plus times. Do it early. Do it fast. I mean, fucking get him involved. Hashtag get involved. Like, I think they should run him early. I think they should make the Steelers respect it, get that out of the way. Like,
he's the best. He is the best runner of the football since Barry Sanders, and it's win or go home. I mean, like, this whole thing about like not running Lamar, like, I get where it's coming from, but like, this is why he lost the weight. This is why he is who he is. Be who you are, right? Know first who you are, then adorn yourself accordingly.
Mindwater here says Steelers will always be expecting the run. Tomlin will fix what they did wrong. I don't know how. I mean, the big thing for me, like I said, you stick Deshaun Elliott back in the box. He's better than Minka is in the box. And then you got Minka playing on the roof, who's better than DeMonte KZ, just more talented. They play what they play. They are dictated by your personnel. If you want to fight them in a phone booth, and the Ravens spread out on them in that week 16 matchup. I keep thinking 15 all the time. That was Giants. Week 16, the Ravens spread the field with 12 personnel, with different personnel and groups, spread it out and ran Henry. I don't love fighting them in a phone booth. I think that plays to their strengths a little better. So spread them out.
And that
the traps and options kill them, right? Yeah, I mean the traps are killing them. They're very aggressive. They are gap penetrators. They don't have Michael Pierce line up and try and just shuck your center and align and mirror and then play the gap. They are trying to penetrate upfield. So it's what you do in football, it's what you do in any sport. When someone's aggressive, you use it against them. It's jujitsu of running the football.
Yeah, and if you run the ball successfully out of the wider alignments if you throw the ball, if you run the ball successfully out of the wide alignments, that opens up throwing the ball. That's like Baldy did a nice breakdown on the likely touchdown at the pylon at the last one, where it's like they bring in Ricard, they've got Henry going one way, fake it to Henry, Lamar holds up, fakes like he's going to run, and likely it's just wide the hell open, and it's just an easy little pop pass. Like it's just nuances that open things up upon itself, you know.
Well, to go back to this one about Zay Flowers, again, like when you don't have him all week and it's not, like they knew he wasn't playing. Harbaugh's talking about he's rehabbing. Then now it's Aguilar and it's Tylan Wallace, and you probably have play calls for those guys. You probably have more play calls for Bateman, more for Likely. You have calls on your sheet for those guys. They know what they're doing. They rehearsed it. Football is a practice sport. There's not going to be surprises. It's not, let's call. Now I've got to call other shit that we didn't kind of talk about this week. It's stuff we installed throughout camp or called earlier this year. And, Wallace and Aguilar are expecting to play heavily. Is that great? No, but I think it'll be better when they know what they're doing and expect it, and it's not a surprise, and there's not Deontay Johnson and whatever lingering on the sidelines. So we haven't really talked about the other side of the football, but I don't know. I think the Ravens offense, it's the same shit. If the Ravens score 20 points, they'll win. If they don't, they'll lose.
According to that video board, they're like the fucking 85 Bears since week 11. So I don't know why that tickled me so much, but I really enjoyed that.
What was it?
The video board, like I told you I was sitting next to Eric and we were just chuckling about the fact
that
since week 11, first in points per, like first at all this
since week 11.
Yeah, since week 11, what happened there? Whatever. Yeah, and your brother Billy, whatever happened there.
Right. So, I mean, to me, Justin Fields is playing like 12 snaps in this game.
Yeah.
They keep talking about it. Fields was being interviewed. Tomlin talked about it. Arthur Smith talked about it. They've got to do something different. Russell Wilson has thrown between the numbers this year, between the numbers, not the hashes, the numbers, 48% of the time. He's only one of 3 qualified quarterbacks this year to do that. The others are Jalen Hurts and Bryce Young. And Bryce was doing that very early. He has 7.7 yards per attempt outside the numbers. Obviously, Pickens not in that last matchup, and that's a difference maker, but they didn't do shit in the first matchup. Like Pickens caught one ball, I think. He's going to catch one ball for 35 yards, and then you got to stop him in the red zone. I think
it was the Russie Moonball on Stevens, which I think is what's going to worry people, and I get it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you got to take that into consideration. So he throws the Ravens defensive assistant on Hard Knocks said it's all 3-pointers and layups. Like he checks down or he throws a moonball. He throws it outside, short, quick, or he throws a moonball. If he holds the ball, bad things happen. If he turns his back, he's simply just not as fast as he used to be. He's older. Was he 34, 35 now? So I don't know. It's like they played Jalen Warren. I tweeted this out earlier. The Steelers played Jalen Warren on 40 snaps, which was tied for his season high, and he looked good. I think that was a good decision against the Ravens. I think it worked better, efficient to attack them and get your 5 yards if you can, as opposed to trying to like barrel downfield with a bigger back. The Ravens out wrestle up front. Najee Harris only had 17, which I think was his second lowest this season. I think the other one might have been injury. So I don't know, man. It's, you've seen them twice. They're in your place. You've got the better quarterback. Even Boswell's hurt, I think, or sick or something. Seems like the Steelers have a flu running through. They're also just down in the dumps. I mean, George Pickens is one drop or one slip away from fully crashing out. They've been teetering on that for so long.
I think I saw Ken McCusick saying that fans sitting behind the Steelers bench need to be heckling him. Do your part. If you're sitting there, you need to do your part. Get on board and heckle the hell out of George Pickens and just get him to crash out.
Hashtag get involved there. Heckle George if you're back there. So then you mentioned the George Pickens moonball. So what do you do? Like Fields, to me, these are the things that I predict the Steelers will do. They are going to have series or strings of plays for Fields. They are going to run him first, maybe on multiple series to get you moving downhill. And then they are going to boot him, do an end around, a reverse pass, throw a screen to Justin Fields, something like that. Or I could see them trying to run like Y leak, that Kyle Shanahan staple where George Kittle walks up and blocks. You run heavy personnel, hard ball fake, and then he just runs down the line of scrimmage and then up the sideline again on the other side of the field. Like that is what they're going to do. They are going to try some little Justin Fields tricky shit. And I would anticipate it. Again, they're being like kind of obvious that they're going to use Fields in this game. And if they don't, then what's the spark? Wilson won't throw over the middle. He refuses. He always has. He always will. It's not his game. He doesn't like it. If you get Wilson to live throwing the ball over the middle of the field, like I think you win. Like that's a win. He's doing what he's uncomfortable doing. So that's not going to happen. I don't think he will. There's Freiermuth, there's Calvin Austin, they have Mike Williams, all these like we know it's all familiar foes, whatever. So you mentioned the George Pickens moonball. What can you do if you want to play? Someone said, why don't they just play Marlon out wide on the other side? Sure, I don't think they will. I think that they are stubborn and stubborn isn't even like a negative thing. It's just they don't do that. They stick corners on one side. Marlon is a left corner and Nate Wiggins is a left corner. And then Marlon kicks inside when Wiggins comes on the field most of the time. So if it's Trey White, if it's Brandon Stevens, don't run man one and cover three. Straight cover three. If you run cover three, cloud it. So have Stevens squat, and then the weak side safety rotates to the boundary third. The strong side safety rotates to the middle of the field, and then the corner on the other side plays the other third. You can do that, have him squat, or you can have him play super depth and buzz Ardarius Washington or Kyle Hamilton underneath of it. And again, what did the Steelers do last time? They isolated Cordarrelle Patterson. They had him run a rail route on the left side of the field. And I think all of these things are correlated. I'm talking about, you know, that Brandon Stevens or Trey White are going to play right corner. And you know that if you align trips to the other side, so the offense is right, the defense is left, you're going to get Malik Harrison most of the time as the weak side linebacker, right? So there's more space. There's trips to the right, so there's less bodies. There's a single receiver left, and there's a back to the left. So more space for Malik Harrison and Brandon Stevens to cover. So roll coverage. Trick them, be aggressive. And if you're making Russ look left, turn back right, he's always skittish in the pocket, man. He doesn't like to hold the ball, especially now that he's not quite the athlete he used to be. I saw a stat here from Next Gen Stats. He has the lowest, when quick pressured, he has the lowest time to release from quick pressure of his career. He's not trying to hold the ball if you get pressure on him. He's trying to fucking get it out. They don't want to take a sack. They're a stagnant offense. They don't want to play behind the sticks, and they don't want to play from behind on the scoreboard. So I think you know what they're going to do. It's the same thing they always do. Mike Tomlin plays the same game with the same teams every year. It's the same shit every year. So if you can't beat it, I mean, you're an idiot. The Ravens have more talent on defense than the Steelers have on offense. You know them. You know what they do. The Steelers scored 14 points against the worst defense in the NFL last week. You've already thwarted them twice. I don't know what the Steelers are going to do to break out of it. Is it that them just trying to rip the ball down the middle and stuff would be out of character, and I just don't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Again, yeah, Deuce 1042, who we love always in the comments here. They're going to run the ball, take a few shots, and punt. And maybe Justin Fields comes in and they run some, fumble-rooski, dipsy doodle, swirling donut stuff once. And I could see Justin Fields just like run, like they do something's fancy, ooh, and then Fields is like, and runs for 7 yards. And that's it. Kurt K, is John Harbaugh coaching for his job this game? I no, but
I think if he wins this game, it would alleviate a lot of that for me. If he doesn't, I would be thinking a little bit.
If they lose this game, and again, it looks like those 2021, 2020 losses, it probably, I would imagine this is what happens. Let's say, hypothetically, Ravens lose this game. I think that he plays his last year, or he coaches his last year in Baltimore this year. His contract's up. There is the great white whale, the great white marlin, Ben Johnson. Everyone like has that. Ooh, well, if they lose, then they get Ben Johnson. And for the record, I could be totally wrong here. I'm going to say it. I know somebody else has probably said it, but let's pump the brakes on Ben Johnson a little.
I am so glad you said that. That validates all that I've been thinking about this guy. This guy is being made out to be like the second coming of Christ.
It's got, again,
his own interviews. He's like, and maybe he'll be great. Listen, I'm into it, but like somebody made the point. I forget who it was, so I apologize. But somebody's like, the last time we had this amount of aura around an offensive coordinator and him like taking tours and getting wined and dined, it was Adam Gase. All right. So if you're going to pick a spot, Ben Johnson, you're going to go through all this, make sure you pick a good one with good ownership and preferably either a quarterback or your pick of the litter for one in the draft, because these things, they don't always just work out because a guy can draw up plays.
That's not what being a head football coach is about in the end. And again, I've always told the Sean McVay story and all that stuff and whatever. Like there's randomness. There's more that is involved than we know. Could Ben Johnson be great? Yes. I think Dan Campbell is the reason why they're really good. I think Dan Campbell is fucking great. And maybe that's why Ben Johnson wisely stayed, to soak up some more Dan Campbell. Does he need to be Dan Campbell? No one can be Dan Campbell. He's his own entity. And I think someone was talking about why they thought Mike McDonald, it might have been Ryan Clark, it might have been, I think it was actually Richard Sherman, one of the DBs, one of the big media DBs, was saying, I think that Zach Orr stopped trying to be Mike McDonald and that's why he had success. But then I'm looking at next gen. It's funny because I look at next gen stats here, and they say that the Ravens ran the most simulated pressure in the league this season, and they were 9th in use of creepers and 10th in dropping line of scrimmage defenders into coverage. So I don't even know. I think that, again, a little different, but yeah, it's just back to the Harbaugh thing. I'm really impressed by what he did this year. I'm really impressed by all the adversity this team went through. Rest in peace, Jacoby Jones. Rest in peace, Joe D'Alessandro. Mike McDonald leaves. Anthony Weaver leaves. Denard Wilson leaves. They lose all these coaches. They have to bench Marcus Williams. They cut Eddie Jackson. They trade for Deontay Johnson. They get rid of him. I mean, they've gone through a lot of strife and change. And they ended up 12-5, number 3 seed, a game off from the 2 seed. If Kyle Hamilton catches a football, Justin Tucker makes a kick, it could go the other way. The Bills, or the Bengals, win one of those games against the Ravens. Sure. It's a dual-edged sword, but I think it was a good year. They buckled down when they needed to and won in December. And I think this team, again, and at the end of the day, I do believe in them differently, and I tend to be more optimistic overall, but I do think they realized what they were doing wrong was more of a cultural pressure they were putting on themselves when they didn't have to. They know what to do. And the Steelers offense fucking sucks. Could they have a good game? Yeah. Their offense is not good. It's not. It's not exciting in terms of schematics. It's not cunning. It's not creative. It's not aggressive. It's not talented more than most teams. Their offensive line, we haven't talked. I mean, their tackles are horrible. I think that's a big reason why, too. Dan Moore has led up the most sacks in the NFL. Broderick Jones is allowing 11% pressure rate. Broderick Jones said he wanted a redemption against Baltimore. So, that Ravens pass rush, it's good, man. They don't get as much pressure as some other teams, but second in sacks. I saw also Kyle Van Noy, Odafe Owe, and Nnamdi Madubuike. The Ravens are only one of 2 teams to have 3 players each account for 15% of their pressures or more. Those guys have been good. Those guys have been really good. So, yeah, I mean, Princess Leia here, 911, no playmakers. Pickens is a good deep ball receiver. He's a good contested catch receiver. I think he's a good receiver. He's a good deep threat. Freiermuth is a fine tight end. I like Najee Harris. I like Jalen Warren. Calvin Austin has some speed. I've liked Van Jefferson in the draft years ago. You're not looking at the Bengals offense. You're not looking at the Bills offense. You're not looking at the Chiefs. You're not looking at, anything high flying. I don't know, man. I don't know. Everyone knows what this game comes down to in the world: turnovers and penalties and mistakes that are self-inflicted. Everyone in the United States of America that has played fantasy football this season, that has a Twitter account and likes football, knows the Steelers win games by turning the football over and kicking field goals. If you take care of the football, you will win.
Okay. I think that leads us right into it. What do you think plays out on Saturday night?
We saw them figure out a way to do something creative. You attack Malik Harris. If I'm the Steelers, I look at it. I say, what do we always say, Jake? Who's my bitch? Who you say, Jake? Who's the bitch on the Ravens? If you're the Steelers, who's my bitch on both sides of the ball? What do you look at?
I'd look at the guards on the offensive side of the football, and on defense, I'm looking at Brandon Stevens, particularly after last week.
And Malik Harrison, Brandon Stevens, Trey White. And it's not disrespect to them. It's just that Nate Wiggins is allowing the second lowest completion percentage in the NFL when targeted of all corners. Marlon Humphrey, probably an all-pro. He's guaranteed to be a second-team all-pro. I think it might be a first-team all-pro. Kyle Hamilton is generationally good safety. Ardarius Washington has been nails. Ardarius Washington, get a big tight end on him, see if he can jump. We've watched him do it a little bit. That's one. Who's my bitch? It's Malik Harrison. It's Brandon Stevens. It's Trey White. That's where I'm going. I have to. And it's not because Brandon Stevens had a tough year. Has stunk at times. That one. But the other two, it's I just have to attack you. I'm not attacking Roquan over you. I'm not trying to isolate Roquan. On the other side of the ball, it's Roger Rosengarten, it is what it is. Going to line up against TJ Watt. I'm going to try and really penetrate against those guards because I want to see if they can deal with it. So,
after that pep talk he got from Myles Garrett, maybe he's ready to become the second coming of Anthony Munoz.
He's played well, dude. He's good. He's good. He's a humble guy. You know, I actually hated that he said that I'm a nobody. It was, you know, it was endearing.
It was a little fake. It was a little fake humble. Like, you were a second round pick, dog. Let's, you know.
Well, I mean, no one even talked about him in the draft. I think people I think he went above the consensus, maybe the consensus board, all that shit. So
I'm just kidding. And also, he did a great service there too by starting the early recruiting pitch for Myles Garrett to come to Baltimore. So nice job by you, Rob.
Right. It was humble, but it was like, come on, big dog, you're good, bro. Like, you're good at football in the NFL. You're a good tackle. You're quick. You're a rookie. You're playing better than most rookies do. So I just don't know what the Steelers can do to surprise the Ravens at this point. I think they can score a touchdown. I think Boswell can kick 3 field goals, 2 field goals. Justin Fields, like that, if that, maybe Arthur Smith, who is not known for doing it. Like, that's the thing. We'll talk about the Justin Fields thing. It's like, who is the most predictable offensive coordinator? Arthur Smith. He got that's why Falcons fans, everybody hated on him, because he wasn't using Bijan. He wasn't using Kyle Pitts. He runs the same offense wherever he goes. He's not one of those, you know, I make my offense around my players. He's a little bit more of my system is my system kind of guy. And he's had success against the Ravens in the playoffs with the Titans, Derrick Henry. But I just don't see them drawing up some schematic ace in the hole 5 times, 3 times to get the Ravens. And I think the Ravens are aware that that's probably what they have to do. So I don't think they score a lot. Offensively, the Ravens score 3 touchdowns, kick 1-2 field goals, 27, 27-13, 27-16. I think the Ravens can score a couple times. Isaiah Likely in motion. He's a mismatch problem. You got to isolate Mark Andrews to get that man coverage. Somebody in the comments talked about that. Mina Kimes saying how good he is against man coverage. So let's see this be the Mark Andrews game too. If the Ravens need it, if they can't just run through the gates of hell with Derrick Henry, let's see this be the Mark Andrews playoff game, right? Didn't score his first touchdown against the Steelers till last game that they played. So I'm going to go like 27. I'll say 27-16.
27-16 is the prediction. I'm going to go Ravens 24-20. Got the Ravens 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Steelers 2-2. And, I think they'll put a couple drives together. I think the Ravens will. I think they've learned a lot in the last month or so. I think this last matchup with them was a learning experience. I think their game against the Browns was a bit of a learning experience. And, they maybe probably had some bad habits reemerge, and that was a good reminder for them. Hang on to the football, make your kicks, and just get the hell out of there with the win, because you are more talented. You have the better quarterback by far, I think, and just go out there and destroy a narrative. And really, like, what I'd love to see is for Lamar to have like a pedestrian game, like a decent game, and the defense just stands on their head and Henry just carries the way. I feel like that will be a good premonition heading into the divisional round. That, like, it doesn't all have to be
more pressure off of him.
Yeah, it doesn't all have to be on my shoulders, because I think him talking about getting in his own head in these playoff games, I think that was a nice vulnerable moment. And then he said, like, well, that's not going to be an issue this year. And Florio said something to the effect today of like, well, it actually is. Like, just because you're talking about it doesn't mean it's not a thing. When you get out there, like, you got to prove it to us. And I think Florio's right on the money with that. Like, just go out there.
I love Florio, man. He really is on the point a lot. I think I'm baby Florio in ways.
You've got some Florio vibes. I can see you out in the barn in 30 years, sitting there with a couple cigars and a bourbon, just breaking down ball and just having a good time. So I think that it's just all this talk, all this bullshit, all the shouty shows and all the stuff they like to talk about, like, it all dissipates if you just do what you need to do. Just football hygiene, right? Brush your teeth, make your bed, do all the shit that you just need to do, the simple things, the easy things that maybe you don't always think about, but you probably should. Less penalties, less turnovers, make your kicks, and get out of there with a W.
Eat your vegetables, brush your teeth, make your bed. That's what this game is for the Ravens. I like that. Going through some of the comments here before we get out of here. Mason McCormick, the Steelers right guard, did break his hand. He's supposed to play through it. Offensive linemen don't actually have fingers anyway. They're just all, if you're in the NFL and you play offensive line, your fingers are just mauled to death. You've snapped them, broken them. If you're in the NFL in general, your fingers are not real. they're dead.
The white knuckles in Invincible. If my knuckles are white, that means I'm going to beat you on this rep.
Exactly. Radioactive Toast here says it's just intimidating to ask Myles Garrett for a jersey. That's true too. That's a good point.
Yeah. And again, that's Myles Garrett will be a Raven soon. So
Princess Leia, Steelers just don't have AB or Big Ben or Le'Veon Bell types. Right. And that's who they were when they were good, right? Santonio Holmes was dirty. They had Hines Ward. They had good backs. They had Heath Miller. And Freiermuth has a little bit of that rumble to him. I think he's good. I think he's a good tight end. I'd take him over the Dalton Schultzes of the world. Sorry to disrespect my fellow, Schultz kin, but they're just a fucking offense. Like, I don't know. It's like a college offense in ways. I would also like to see Harbaugh play Tomlin's game, be conservative, kick field goals, punt the ball.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Get the points up, lower the blood pressure. You can always go for it later in the playoffs if you need to. If you're down, you can go for it later. That's what. And I went back and rewatched that Titans game that everyone talks about. We're going to talk about it for the rest of our lives, Jake. I think we always say we don't need to talk about it anymore, but they were going for it on 4th and 1. That was their thing. That was the year where Harbaugh was like the first Dan Campbell in that way, right? Like, oh, we're going for it every time. Like, yep, analytics, all that shit. And then they got stuffed. And then they got stuffed on that Lamar QB sneak where he looked like a fox running around back and forth real quick and didn't just, pick it and stick to it. And that's why they lost. Like, that's a big reason why. Turning the ball over instead of taking 3 there. Maybe it's a 1-possession game instead of a 2-possession game at times, things like that. So, frustrate them, show them. Yeah, right. Make them have to be the ones to press, right? Make them have to make the play. That's what it's all about. That's what the jiu-jitsu of the Mahomes and the Bradys and those Patriots and Chiefs teams. When you make your mistake, that's when they step on your throat. Momentum. I mean, if I'm fucking striping a golf ball, I'm going to keep striping, right? Like if I'm hitting a golf ball like shit, momentum is a thing.
Don't say that to the dorks.
Go shoot a basketball, go make 3 threes in a row. You feel fucking good. You're going to keep shooting. You're going to feel good. And that's why the great NBA players say, I don't care if I miss, short-term memory, all those things, because you have to overcome the mental aspect. So love that. Flagship Fantasy, I vehemently disagree. Tinfoil hat. I'll put tinfoil. This is what I'm going to say for the tinfoil hat from now on. We're going to put the Ravens hat on. How on earth would the NFL not want Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson to play next week? Look me in my eyes. How, if there is any factor that you guys know I believe in that oversees and weighs and puts their thumb on the scale, how do they not want Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson playing next week and the winner of that playing Patrick Mahomes? How? Riddle me that. How is that not the desired outcome? And why does the referee of this game call 63% of penalties on road teams? I think those two things kith. I think those are correlated. I've already said it. How do I think they control? If they want to put their thumb on something, they use the refs to do it. So I think it's the opposite. Who on earth wants to watch the Steelers play the Bills in Buffalo?
I mean, it was a fucking firecracker this time last year when they went in there. Man, what an amazing matchup. I'd love to see that again.
If there are forces at B, they do not want the Steelers playing the Bills or the Steelers playing the Chiefs. We just saw that on Christmas. We know what that will look like. They can't play with them. So, no, I don't think so. And then he said, because Goodell wants it easier for Josh. I think that this is what has happened. You are on Twitter. You are in your algorithm. You are conversating, replying to things. I do it, so I know. So then suddenly all you're getting is Bills fans talking about Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson was named the All-Pro by the players. He was named PFF, MVP. All-Pro comes out tomorrow. I'm not shocked if he's first team. They want quarterback rivalry matchups. They don't want the opposite. The Chiefs and the Bills, I honestly blows my mind. When you go look, let's see how many times they've played in the playoffs already. They played
twice, I think, right?
They played last year in the divisional round, 2023. They played 2021 against the Chiefs. They played 2020 against the Chiefs.
Okay.
They have played in 3 of the last 4 playoffs. The NFL want, if they want marketing, if this shit is WWE, they want more than that, man. They want more. They don't just want Bills Chiefs. It's been done. Jonas Evans here. Steelers are the reason this is on Prime. I'm sure that the NFL is probably like, imagine if it was Steelers Texans at 3:30.
I love the stat about the Texans in the wild card round every year. It's always the first Saturday game. Every single time they've been in the wild card, it's always been on this.
That's honestly, I'll say that's fucked up. That's messed up.
It is. It's a little, come on. Houston's been through enough with the NFL. Like, give them a break.
So, yeah, again, we'll put it back on every time. Deuce 1042 says the Bills have beaten the Chiefs in the regular season 4 straight years and can't beat them in the playoffs. That storyline is not like scintillating anymore. We've already done is this the year? No one thinks that. And I don't think it's that like, all right, let's see if Allen can do it this time. Like, I don't know. It's good. I'll watch. It's exciting. I think it's still exciting, but I don't know. I think if you're trying to squeeze the blood out of every single dime, I think you want Bills and you want Ravens in Buffalo. And I think you want Chargers, and I think you want Chiefs in Kansas City, right? That's pretty good. Pretty good cinema. And the AFC is the, like, breadwinner. On the other side of the bracket, the Eagles are cool. Saquon, the Lions are exciting. The Vikings just shit their pants. The Rams are solid. I think the Commanders are very fun. And if I'm going full conspiracy theory, I think they want Jaden Daniels in that NFC. Although the football brain in me says that Todd Bowles has shit on the Eagles and he has shit on the Commanders, and the Eagles and Commanders run similar offenses. I think they have very simple offenses, RPO-based offenses. I think Todd Bowles just, with what he can do to that, I think he's the worst person to be stale against with his pressure packages and the way that he can stuff the run and get things going. But I don't know. I love that Commanders team. I think they're a lot of fun. So, yeah, I don't know. Ravens, Jake and I, we both have it. Ravens move on. Hopefully that's the case. A lot of time between then and now and a lot of anxiety, but we're excited. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow announcing the winner of the ticket giveaway, 2 tickets. Again, there's still time. It's pinned tweet on my profile. Just send in a video of why you think the Ravens will beat the Steelers and use the hashtag hashtag E52 giveaway and send me a video. Just tweet it.
There you have it. And you can find it at Exit 52 Podcast on X, at Ravens4Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle. I am at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. As far as our other contributors, you can find Brian at Barstool Banks, Taylor at TaylorsMy10, Eric at EDITTI22. Thank you all for hanging with us here on the official preview live stream. We'll probably have something going tomorrow night as well, and then obviously going live after the game. Appreciate you guys all very much. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to us here on YouTube. Help us out in that way. Like all the videos, comment on them all, get that algorithm pumping for us. Love you guys. Appreciate you very much. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
See you.
Arrivederci.